Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss Pre-Market Report for Wednesday, June 13th, 2018. Happy Hump Day, everyone. I am Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Here's a look at the daily time frame of the ES. We continue to see a quiet squeeze higher. One thing to keep in mind today is Fed Day. We have our FOMC key level coming up. The last one we had was back in May. So May 2nd right here, that was the last day. We dropped first and rallied and have been up ever since. That was the first time this year for the ES. We had one that came out here. That was January 31st when offered and has never come back to retest it, so we might be headed there soon. That's the 28.29 I continue to reference. And then this is the March 21st FOMC key level when offered away from it, and it took quite a while before we came back to it and then eventually through it. So these levels have been very, very important, very good levels to both trade and execute entries on, and also levels to play as targets as well. So we'll continue to watch those. We get another key level today, 1 o'clock open price Central or 2 o'clock open price Eastern. So again, it's going to be the open price at that time, right when the Fed announces the federal interest rate decision. That's going to be an important key level to watch and mark on all the futures contracts. They all work, even Bitcoin. So keep an eye on that. Right here, the ES continues to trade higher. I mentioned before, if this thing's going to start to turn down, this would be the earliest time, would be above 27.91s. But I continue to believe that the best opportunity is to wait until 28.07 is taken out, the recent highs there, and then perhaps even as high as 28.29, and that would provide a better opportunity to reject those highs back to the midpoint of the range, 27.03. Otherwise, no rejection would suggest a continuation until we do find rejection, and right now we're not seeing any signs of rejection, only signs of continuation and acceptance at higher price levels. Alright, let's take a look here at the NQ. Very similar price action. The recent pullback to the 8-period average was bought. Big time squeeze happening right now, and for the most part it's only getting started. Again, if there's a failure to hold though above 72.40, that could provide a little bit of a pullback that would take out the recent pivot low here, and that low is 71.01 basically. So again, got to be able to hold that 72.40 zone. If so, we could see a continuation toward higher prices. Overall, look for this thing to continue to trade towards 7,300. Eventually, if there's any hard rejection of this recent high, that's the 70.14.5, a hard rejection of that level would then lead to perhaps a pullback of some magnitude, perhaps to the previous month's close. That'd be 69.77, perhaps as low as 66.65 or 66.55 back in this low. So we'll see how much of a pullback we get. We've seen greater and greater size on each of these pullbacks each and every time, but again, the 72.14.5 level is going to give us that information. Alright, taking a look at crude oil now. You'll notice crude continues to build in this very, very tightly coiled range. The PivotBoss ADR indicator is showing very compressed price action based on its average price action, and you can see here, I mean, it's been about 8 days sideways. Another failed new low in the making. If you look at the intraday chart, we have absorption occurring off the 65.80 level, and basically that's a very important level to watch. If there's a failure to hold that level today, a major stop run could be seen to the downside. Again, all eyes on the Fed today, and that could spark a very impressive move one way or another, or perhaps a fake out in one direction and then a move in the intended direction. So just be cautious, but again, keep an eye on that 65.80, 65.85 zone. A failure to hold that level could open up a big time wave of weakness. Holding above that level still gives a little bit of upward bias as the channel continues to trend higher. Above 66.29, acceptance above that zone opens up a much more upside to a recent pivot high of 68.70. Looking at gold, you'll see gold here continues to coil up. This one has been waiting on the Fed for quite a while. You can see the compressed action right here, very, very tightly coiled. Here's our key range low. It's holding the 1290 level, holding the 1310. That's our breakout zone. So above 1310 opens up the potential to see 1337, and then a continuation into 1360 to 1370. Failure to hold 1290 or failure to see acceptance above 1310 could lead to quite a move down, and that gets us into 1240 to 1252. So that's what we're looking at right here. How is price going to respond after the Fed announcement? Is it going to push higher? If so, acceptance above 1310, you could see a big time stop run day, something like this perhaps, and then followed by a pullback and a continuation. So it could be a rather quick move back to the center point if this thing finds acceptance above 1310 today. Alright, lastly, let's take a look at the YM. Again, we mentioned earlier that this break away from the midpoint here was very important, and at least implied a move back to the 25% key level and the recent pivot high. That's 25,785. We've continued to hold above the previous month's high. We haven't really gone much of anywhere over the last 3 days. It's been a double inside day here. Very, very narrow price action as price continues to coil ahead of the Fed. Again, this could lead to a breakout and a continuation to the upside until we reach our target, but it's not unlikely to see a downside break first and a continuation, that is a fake out in the original direction. So even if we see a breakdown, a break back toward 24,886 could still be defended for a shot at seeing 25,785 on a swing basis. So keep that in mind as we continue forward. YM continues to be bullish for a continuation to 25,785. Any pullback could be seen as a buying opportunity. Failure to hold that 24,886 would open up a failure back toward recent pivot lows and perhaps even lower. So that's the approach for the YM. We'll see how this plays out heading into the Fed. All eyes on that 1 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Keep an eye on it later on today. Good luck, trade well, and I'll see you soon. Take care.